There comes a moment in a woman's life when desire stops being a secret longing and begins to feel like a quiet force rising from within, a force she can no longer ignore. And I want you to feel that force now, gently unfolding inside your chest, as if something ancient and instinctive has finally opened its eyes. Because becoming the woman who gets everything she wants is not about charm, tactics, or persuasion. It begins in a place much deeper, in the silent territory where your boundaries take shape, where your desires stop apologizing for their intensity, where your emotional presence becomes unmistakable. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you are standing at the threshold of that becoming. Take a slow breath. Let the outside world soften. Because what awakens now is not arrogance, it is remembrance. A remembrance of the woman you were before life taught you to shrink, before love taught you to bargain with your own worth, before you learned to dim yourself so others would not feel overwhelmed. Deep down, you have always felt it, that subtle tension between who you pretend to be and who you truly are. The woman who smiles politely while hiding entire oceans beneath the surface. The woman who knows exactly what she wants, but has been taught to want softly. But desire does not disappear, it waits. It waits for the moment when you stop negotiating with your own intuition. It waits for the moment when you stop explaining what should be obvious. It waits for the moment when you decide that wanting more is not a flaw, it is your nature. And now, as you listen, something rises, slowly, confidently. A boundary forming without words. A desire unfolding without shame. An emotional influence awakening without effort. This is the beginning of becoming that woman. The woman whose presence shifts the room, whose silence is understood, whose desires are met, because she finally allows them to be felt. In Jung's view, the feminine becomes powerful not when she tries to control the world, but when she finally controls her own inner landscape. And that is the journey you are beginning right now. The journey of becoming the woman who gets everything she wants, not through force, but through truth. There is something magnetic about a woman who knows what she wants but no longer chases it. Her desire becomes a quiet current, not a plea, and this current begins to pull the world toward her. I want you to feel that shift now, like a change in the air around your body, subtle but undeniable. Because this is where feminine power begins, not in effort, but in orientation. For years, you were taught to soften your wants so others wouldn't feel pressured, to make yourself easier so no one would misinterpret your strength. You learned to ask gently, to desire carefully, to hope secretly. But desire is not meant to be small. It is meant to guide you. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And your desires, the ones you quieted, postponed, or dressed in humility, are the unconscious speaking. A woman who gets everything she wants does not have louder desires. She has clearer ones, unapologetic, unhidden, unnegotiated. Because when you finally stop diluting what you feel, your desires stop scattering and begin to form a direction, and men feel this. They feel the difference between a woman who wants affection and a woman who embodies the expectation of being cherished. They feel the difference between a woman who wishes to be chosen and a woman who chooses herself first. This is the art of feminine influence. You stop asking for emotional essentials, and instead, your presence silently demands them. A man becomes more attentive, more deliberate, more present, not because you asked, but because your boundaries raise the emotional standard around you. You don't persuade. You don't explain. You embody. And when a woman embodies her desire, she becomes unmistakable. She becomes the gravity in the room rather than the wind chasing after something fleeting. She becomes someone a man instinctively adjusts to, not because she imposes herself, but because she no longer reduces her emotional truth to be digestible. In Jung's view, the feminine becomes irresistible when it aligns with its own depth. And that is the path you are walking now. A path where desire is not a weakness, but a compass, not a risk, but a revelation. You are only beginning to understand how powerful you become when you allow yourself to want fully. There is a boundary so subtle and so powerful that once you awaken it, your entire life begins to rearrange itself around your worth. It is the boundary of no longer participating in anything that diminishes you. And the moment you embody this truth, something extraordinary happens. The world starts treating you with the same seriousness you give yourself. You've spent years trying to earn what should have been given naturally: attention, effort, presence, consistency. And you believe that if you were patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, someone would finally meet you where you stood. But that was never the path. What you were missing was not more effort, it was a boundary. Because as Carl Jung said, what you resist not only persists, but grows. And you resisted the truth. You were trying to receive devotion from people who had never learned to give it. When a woman sets this boundary, the boundary of emotional clarity, she becomes unforgettable. She no longer stays where she is tolerated. She no longer justifies emotional crumbs. She no longer sacrifices her peace to prove loyalty to someone who cannot hold depth. This is where your transformation begins. You stop chasing potential. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop offering softness to those who haven't earned access to your tenderness. And a remarkable shift follows. Men feel it immediately. They sense your absence in ways they never appreciated your presence. They begin to weigh their words. They begin to notice their own behavior reflected back to them with a clarity they cannot escape. Because suddenly, the woman who once tried to understand everything now understands herself. And that changes the emotional equation entirely. Your silence becomes a mirror. Your calmness becomes a challenge. Your boundaries become the standard. This is feminine power, not as seduction, but as self-recognition. The moment you choose yourself without hesitation, your energy changes, quietly, unmistakably. And in Jung's view, this is the moment the unconscious becomes aligned with the conscious, creating a woman who is internally unified and therefore externally irresistible. You are not becoming demanding. You are becoming defined. And a defined woman is a force the world cannot ignore. There is a moment when a woman's energy speaks louder than her words, and this moment becomes a turning point in her life. It is when she finally understands that she doesn't need to convince anyone of her worth. She only needs to embody it. And I want you to feel that shift now, as if something inside you is straightening, rising, reclaiming its rightful place. For so long, you tried to articulate your needs, hoping someone would listen, hoping that by being softer, more patient, more adaptable, they would finally understand how to treat you. But understanding was never the issue. Presence was. As Carl Jung said, your perception will become clear only when you look into your own heart. And now you are doing exactly that, looking inward, not outward, for validation. A woman who gets everything she wants is not louder. She is clearer, not harsher, more aligned, not detached, simply selective. Her boundaries do not push people away, they filter them. You begin to realize that the more you honor your emotional space, the more others must adapt to the rhythm of your presence instead of expecting you to follow theirs. And this is where true feminine influence emerges, in the quiet refusal to abandon yourself. Men feel this instantly. They sense when you are no longer moved by inconsistent effort, when you no longer respond to half-hearted gestures, when you no longer reward emotional laziness with your devotion. Your energy becomes something they cannot take lightly. You stop over-explaining. You stop soothing what does not belong to you. You stop entering emotional spaces that do not honor your depth. And suddenly, you become a mystery, not because you hide, but because you only reveal yourself where it feels safe to unfold. Men instinctively rise to meet this kind of woman because her presence awakens their higher nature. She becomes the catalyst, not through pressure, but through clarity. In Jung's view, The feminine that stands in her own truth summons the masculine that is capable of depth. And without saying a word, you begin to influence the emotional tone of every connection in your life. You're not manipulating. You're not strategizing. You are simply becoming aligned, and alignment attracts everything meant for you. This is the silent art of feminine power. Not to chase, not to prove, but to become. And the more you become, the more the world rearranges itself around you. There is a shift in a woman's life that is almost imperceptible at first, but once it happens, nothing returns to its old shape. It is the moment she realizes she no longer needs to be available to everything, especially not to what drains her, confuses her, or diminishes her. And as you read this now, I want you to feel that boundary forming like a quiet exhale, a release of everything you once held out of habit, not desire. For years, you responded to every message, entertained every apology, welcomed every return, accepted every inconsistency. Not because you lacked strength, but because you had too much hope. You believed that love could grow simply by waiting for someone to meet you where you stood. But waiting is not the same as receiving, and hoping is not the same as being chosen. As Carl Jung said, we meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. And now you are meeting the version of yourself who refuses to abandon her own path for someone who never learned how to walk beside her. When you stop being accessible to the wrong energy, something profound happens. The right energy begins to recognize you. Men feel this shift immediately. They sense when a woman's attention can no longer be earned with minimal effort, when her presence is no longer free, when her emotional world is no longer a place they can enter casually. You become more selective, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You give less explanation, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. You entertain fewer possibilities, because your life is no longer a waiting room for uncertain intentions. And then the dynamic changes. A man who once acted carelessly begins to move with more intention. A man who took his time begins to act faster. A man who relied on your patience begins to rely on his own maturity. Because suddenly, he realizes something he never considered before. You do not stay where your value is questioned. Your energy is no longer a guarantee, it is an invitation. Your presence is no longer default, it is earned. Your heart is no longer opened by habit, it is opened by alignment. In Jung's view, the moment you withdraw from what is unworthy, you create space for the unconscious to reorganize your life toward what is meant for you. And that is exactly what you are doing now, withdrawing, not as escape, but as refinement. You're not disappearing, you're becoming. And becoming a woman who gets everything she wants requires the first sacred step. Stop giving yourself to what never knew how to hold you. There is a moment when a woman stops asking, stops hoping, stops waiting, not because she is tired, but because she finally understands what her heart has been trying to whisper for years. Not everyone deserves access to your depth. And as this truth settles in your body, something begins to shift in the air around you. You become quieter, but more powerful, softer, but more selective, present, but no longer available for anything that makes your soul shrink. For so long, you accepted inconsistency disguised as affection, intensity disguised as care, confusion disguised as mystery. You convinced yourself that effort was coming, that clarity was just around the corner, that emotional honesty required time. But now you see it differently. Effort does not need reminders, clarity does not need explanation, and honesty does not need translation. As Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And now you realize that many of the men you gave chances to weren't avoiding you. They were avoiding themselves. When your emotional standard rises, everything begins to reveal itself. A man's intentions become clearer. A man's sincerity becomes visible. A man's immaturity becomes undeniable. Because once you decide that emotional inconsistency is no longer something you accommodate, it becomes something you walk away from without hesitation. And this is where your true influence emerges, not from demanding more, but from refusing less. Men feel this immediately. They feel it when you stop rewarding minimal effort. They feel it when you no longer fill in the emotional gaps they leave behind. They feel it when your presence stops compensating for their absence. You become the mirror they cannot avoid, a reflection of their own capacity for love. And suddenly, they have to choose: rise to meet you, or fall away into the shadows of their own unhealed patterns. This is the feminine shift that changes everything. You no longer fear losing someone who cannot meet you. You fear losing yourself in the process of trying to keep them. Your emotional standard becomes a filter, gentle, silent, uncompromising. It removes the men who were only interested in consuming your warmth. It leaves room only for those who can match your depth, not drown in it. In Jung's view, the soul gravitates toward what nourishes it and withdraws from what wounds it. And now, you are finally listening. You are finally choosing the environments where your heart can expand, not collapse. This is the woman who gets everything she wants. The woman who no longer trades her emotional intelligence for temporary attention. There is a shift that happens in a woman's energy when she finally stops explaining herself. Not out of coldness, but out of evolution. Out of the deep realization that anyone who truly wants to understand her will. And anyone who doesn't was never meant to hold her heart in the first place. I want you to feel this shift now, like a soft withdrawal of old habits, like a quiet reclaiming of your emotional space. Because explanations have exhausted you. They've drained your softness. They've diluted your intuition. They've turned your truth into a negotiation. But now, something ancient within you is rising. The part of you that remembers who you were before you began apologizing for your depth. As Carl Jung said, the soul speaks its truth in whispers the mind ignores. And your soul has been whispering this for a long time. You do not need to justify your heart. When a woman stops explaining, something powerful happens in the dynamic with any man. He feels a shift that he cannot name, but cannot ignore. Her silence becomes meaningful. Her presence becomes intentional. Her boundaries become unmistakable. You are no longer accessible for emotional translation. You are no longer available for misunderstanding disguised as confusion. You are no longer willing to carry the responsibility of teaching someone how to love you. And this is where your influence becomes undeniable. Because explanations make you predictable. Predictability makes you easy. But a woman who stands in her truth without trying to convince anyone becomes unforgettable. Men feel this in the way you pause before responding. In the way you no longer rush to reassure. In the way your energy no longer bends to accommodate someone else's uncertainty. He begins to see you differently, not as someone who is grateful for attention, but as someone who grants access. And access to you suddenly feels rarer, more sacred, more intentional. Your emotions stop being an open book. Your heart stops being a place for unfinished men to explore. Your time stops being a playground for indecision. And here's the beautiful part. The right man will rise to meet this version of you. The wrong man will fall away without noise. In Jung's view, the feminine becomes whole when she withdraws from proving her worth and instead allows herself to be known by those capable of depth. That is the path you are walking now. The path where you are no longer explaining yourself into connection, but allowing connection to reveal itself through who stays present without explanations. This is the woman who gets everything she wants. The woman whose silence speaks a language only mature hearts can understand. There is a kind of woman whose presence shifts the emotional temperature of any room she enters. Not because she is loud, not because she tries, but because she radiates a quiet certainty that cannot be faked. It is the certainty of a woman who knows her worth without displaying it, without performing it, without needing anyone to validate it. And as you read this now, I want you to feel that aura beginning to form around you like a subtle field of strength. For most of your life, you were conditioned to prove yourself, to be agreeable, to be pleasing, to be chosen. And in that effort, your worth became entangled with someone else's recognition of it. But now, that old pattern no longer fits. A new identity is emerging, one that no longer depends on external confirmation to feel whole. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And the woman you are becoming has been waiting for years to rise. When a woman internalizes her worth, her energy shifts. She doesn't announce her standards, she embodies them. She doesn't demand attention, she receives it naturally. She doesn't chase alignment, she attracts it effortlessly. And suddenly, she becomes magnetic in a way she never knew she could be. Men feel this immediately. They sense the difference between a woman trying to be chosen and a woman choosing herself first. They sense when your emotions no longer hinge on their approval. They sense when your heart is no longer available to be impressed, only to be met. You become the kind of woman a man feels compelled to rise toward. Not because you asked, not because you insisted, but because your very presence awakens something dormant in him. A desire to show up fully, honestly, consistently. Your silence becomes elegant instead of defensive. Your boundaries become effortless instead of forced. Your desires become natural instead of negotiable. And the most profound part is this. You no longer fear losing anyone, because losing someone who cannot meet you is not a loss. It is alignment. In Jung's view, the feminine becomes truly powerful when she integrates her shadow, the part of her that once doubted, once feared, once begged for love, and transforms it into sovereignty. That is the transformation happening within you now. A shift from emotional dependency to emotional authority. You are becoming the woman whose worth is felt, not explained. Recognized, not requested. Respected, not bargained for. This is the woman who gets everything she wants, because she no longer asks for permission to want it. There comes a moment in a woman's evolution when her absence becomes more powerful than anything she could have said or done. And I want you to feel that moment now. The moment when you withdraw your energy, not out of resentment, but out of awakening. Because when a woman stops overgiving, stops over-explaining, stops emotionally compensating for others, the space she leaves behind becomes a revelation. Something a man can no longer ignore. Something he can no longer escape. Something he must confront within himself. For years, your presence was taken for granted because it was constant. You showed up even when you were tired. You listened even when you were hurting. You understood even when no one tried to understand you. You gave your softness freely, believing that love would eventually reciprocate. But now, as Carl Jung said, what you withdraw from becomes illuminated. And your withdrawal is illumination. Your absence is clarity. Your silence is truth. The emotional world you once carried for others is finally being returned to its rightful owner. And men feel this with a force they never anticipated. When your energy stops filling the gaps in their effort, they must face the emptiness of their own inconsistency. Your absence creates an emotional echo, a reminder of what they lost, a realization of what they never valued properly, a confrontation with the part of them that took your presence as a guarantee. You become unforgettable not because you tried, but because you stopped trying. You become desired not because you pursued, but because you withdrew. You become respected not because you demanded it, but because your absence revealed your worth. This is the paradox of feminine power. You are felt most deeply when you no longer offer yourself freely. Men adjust their behavior when the emotional comfort you provided is no longer available. They step closer. They speak more honestly. They act with more urgency. Because now, your attention is not a certainty, it is a privilege. And here is the truth you are finally ready to embody. You do not chase what cannot hold you. You do not cling to what does not choose you. You do not return to what does not grow with you. In Jung's view, a woman steps into her full feminine essence when she stops fearing abandonment and begins fearing the abandonment of herself. And that is the woman you are becoming. The woman whose absence reveals her value and whose presence must now be earned. This is the kind of woman who gets everything she wants. The woman who is no longer afraid to walk away. There comes a final moment in every inner transformation when the woman you used to be gently steps aside, and the woman you were always meant to become finally takes her place. And I want you to feel that moment now, like a quiet echo settling into your bones, like a truth you've always carried suddenly finding its voice. Because this is not just the end of a script. This is the beginning of your arrival. You are no longer the woman who waits to be chosen. You are the woman who chooses. You are no longer the woman who overgives. You are the woman who receives. You are no longer the woman who doubts her worth. You are the woman whose worth is undeniable. As Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And you are doing that now, not in fragments, not in hesitation, but fully. You have walked through every emotional threshold, the boundary of clarity, the boundary of desire, the boundary of silence, the boundary of worth, the boundary of self-respect. And on the other side stands a woman who is impossible to forget, because she finally remembers herself. Men feel this immediately. They feel your certainty. They feel your softness paired with strength. They feel the difference between a woman who needs attention and a woman who commands presence simply by existing. You have become the emotional standard they rise to, the mirror they must confront, the depth they must grow into. Because now, you do not move toward energy, you attract it. You do not hope for effort, you require it. You do not settle for potential, you choose reality. And here is the deepest truth. You get everything you want because you no longer betray yourself to get it. In Jung's view, individuation, becoming the fullest expression of your soul, is the truest form of power. And that is what you have stepped into. The power of a woman who is whole, aligned, unshakable. A woman who does not chase. A woman who does not beg. A woman who does not shrink. A woman who receives, because her life has become a reflection of her inner alignment. And now, before you step forward into your world with this new energy, I want you to ask yourself one final question, gently, honestly, courageously. Are you ready to live as the woman who gets everything she wants? Not someday, not eventually, but now? If your answer is yes, your life will begin to rearrange itself around that truth. And if you've reached this point with me, if you felt every word, every shift, every awakening, then write one word that marks your transformation. Becoming. Because that is who you are now. A woman who is no longer waiting to be more. A woman who already is.